All right, my name is Scott Hampton. I live in Visalia, California, in Central California, San Joaquin Valley. All right, so let's get started. See, hello, hello, hello. So I'm going to go over here to my workbench. Oh, it's that way. Is it that way? No, it's that way. No, that way. All right, so there's my tub of pre-made globe ornaments right here. It's a lot of them, as you can see. But we're not going to use all of these. We are going to do some wood burning on them and some of them. So I'm going to get a couple out that we can play around with and do some painting on. I'm just getting the plain wood ones out because there's no point in having a really nice globe like this, natural edge, and then painting it. And these natural edges are really nice. I like playing around with those. They sell really well too. So easy to make. You hollow them out just the same, but the shape, creating the shape is pretty easy on the outside. So I'm just digging around for a few more plain ones. Okay. All right, so that'll do it for now, 6 of them. So the first one I'm going to show is really a really easy thing you can do. That you can make add the 2 different colors. This one I'm just going to cut some sponge here. And we're just going to dab on 2 or 3 different colors here. I'm going to start with red and white, kind of a candy cane look. This is a really simple thing you could add to any of these ornaments. All right, so I'm going to squirt some. Oh, need to shake that up first. Well, let's see. This one's a little looser. All right. This one's not quite what. This is whiter white. I'll use this one. And then we'll move on to adding some of that reactive paint to another one, which is always a fun thing to do. So we're just going to squeeze some white out right there. I'm going to put a couple gloves on so I don't get all painty. All right, I'm ready for surgery. Yay.
What kind of paint are you using?
It's just white acrylic paint. This one is called Folk Art. You can get it at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or any craft store, really. What you want to do is have just a small piece of sponge. It comes in big pieces like this. Oh, trying to show this. And I just cut pieces off of it. So I'm just going to dab some paint on here. What this does is, once you get it, I'll probably put a little too much paint on that. So I'm just going to wipe it around and then start dabbing. What this does, it creates a texture on the wood. It leaves like little high spots just the paint to stick. And the sponge makes it, adds a little texture to it. So you just want kind of a thick layer. So it'll add that little texturing to it. That's what I'm shooting for. Looks like I got a little too carried away with this part. So I'm just going to go back over it with a dry part of the sponge and see if I can get it to texture up, which it is. Good, good, good. All right. That looks pretty good. Got enough white on there now. I'm going to switch to red. Probably squeezed out more than I needed there. So I got another clean piece of sponge here for the red. And I'm not going to squeeze as much red out because I think I went a little overboard with the white. So I'll stick my finger back in there. Dab that on there. And then we're just going to fill in the empty spaces with the red. Nice, and just dab it, really quick. And I like that you can put it over the white too. I mean, doesn't have to stay white right there. So I'm just looking at the top here. All right, so I'm gonna kind of turn it around there. I'm just gonna leave it on the table. Try to hold it steady. Just fill in these spots on the bottom. You can use all kinds of colors for this: red, blues, yellows, greens, whatever you feel like. You can do more than 2 colors. So I'm going to put a little more paint on there because it's smoothing out when I dab it on, and it's not leaving a texture. So this, a little bit more right there. And you can adjust it. I mean, let it dry for a little while and then come back and add a little more white to it if you want. Things like that. Usually, most of the time, it doesn't come out perfect the first time, so you got to go over it a couple times just to get the right feeling for it. But oh, there it is. But really simple, not hard. I'm probably put more red on than I wanted. So once the red everything dries, I can take a hair dryer and dry it right now if I wanted to, but it takes a little while. Then I would come back with a smaller piece of sponge and just fill in little spots here and there with more white. That's what I would do. So that's pretty easy. So I'm beginning with the easy stuff and working my way to the harder stuff is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to lay some paper towels out for this. And I need to grab a couple of paint brushes, some foam brushes here. So I'm just going to, all right. So this is reactive metal paint. Takes 3 parts. You've got a primer here, which I'm going to skip today. It's not really necessary. It's kind of like an acrylic paint. So you want to shake it up really well. It's kind of a loose-based acrylic paint that you would apply, but you got to let it dry and things like that. But I found that some of the time, little pieces like this, I forego the primer and I just add the metallic paint. And then we've got the acid, which will change the color. It'll make the metallic paint age really quick. Oh, gotta grab my pliers. It's on there pretty tight. I found this paint really holds the lid tight. If I can just get it off. You can see where I've grabbed this thing with these pliers before. There we go. Easy, easy. Okay, so I'm gonna loosen that up, and I need to shake it up. So all the pigment went to the bottom, so I need to shake it up really well. Let's see what it looks like. Make sure the pigment's up, and there we go. You can see down. You guys can't really see it. It's not light enough. You can see the pigment's all in the carrier now. So I'm just going to take a foam brush. I don't like to use bristle brushes because it leaves brush marks in it. And if you do that, and then when you spray the acid on, you got to spray the acid on when this paint is wet. And when the acid is working, the paint brushes the bristle marks will come through. So I just want to go around as quickly as I can. And as smoothly as I can, smoothing the paint out as I go. There we go. And this stuff works really quick. By the time half hour goes by, it's going to look like it's been sitting out in the weather for 100 years or more. But it doesn't take long for it to even start showing up that it's working. So once you spray it on, you'll see the reaction almost immediately. But it does take a little more time for it to actually deepen and deepen, get more deep. So you can brush this stuff on, which I don't recommend. You can sponge it on, which works kind of well. But my favorite thing is to spray it on. And always, always put the cap on that paint back on before you spray this. This is a reactive acid. I'll just pour a little bit into this and sponge it on with the natural edge sponge. So I'm going to cut another piece off of this. We got to work quick. This stuff is famous for clogging up the pump sprayers. That's why the company sells extra pump sprayers, because a lot of times if you don't clean them out regularly or something, then got some on there. Just gonna dab it around and it should start working almost immediately. Hopefully the paint didn't dry too fast. If it did, I have to add another coat to it and do it all over again. Just dab it all over the place. Depending on how much coverage of the acid you want, you can leave little bare spots where the copper shows through if that's what you want to do. But I like doing it this way. I just cover the whole thing. All right, so we'll set this aside and we'll see what happens. Okay. And I'm going to set this right there out of the way. I'm going to cap everything, make sure everything's capped well. So I don't want anything to dry out. And I will take what I poured out, what's left of that, and I'll pour it back in the bottle in a little while. So I have both types of razor tip burners. I have the older one and this newer one. This one gets, if you're gonna do kind of like carving with wood burning, I mean, really scorch the wood, make it totally black. This thing will turn your tips red hot to do that. I'm gonna show you real quick how hot this thing gets. I'm gonna turn it up. And this is a shader. I'm gonna grab my other one here. I'm gonna grab my wire. This will heat up really hot and fast. So you turn it way up. And it's gonna start roasting here in a second. I don't know if you guys can see how red hot that thing. Sure. It's that hot, that quick. Now you can turn it down and it'll cool off almost immediately. That way you can do more detailed work. Like you want it red hot if you're going to do a lot of scorching work like basket weave or doing like stars, and you want to burn all around the stars and leave like texturing and stuff around them. I'm just going to touch this real, see how quick that is. All right. So I'm going to turn this way down before I touch it to any wood, any of the globes. So there's several kinds of designs you could add on these. You can draw stars. You can, trees, Santa Claus, whatever you want. So I'm just going to touch the bottom of this just to see how quickly it's going to burn. Okay, it needs to be a little higher. I'm just touching it right here, almost where nobody would notice it. It's almost hot enough for this wood. It's leaving just a little bit of a black dot, so I'm going to turn it up to 50. That's the half the power. There we go. That's a little too much because it's really scorching it faster than I want. So I'm going to turn it back down to 40. I'm doing this in an area where I'm testing the wood where a finial is going to cover it up. So you won't see that once the finial is glued to this. Okay, that's better. Right, so what I want to do first, I'm going to create some, I want to create some trees on this. I'm going to kind of zoom this in a little bit closer so you guys can see a little bit better what I'm doing on this. There we go. Trees are pretty easy. You just take this wire here and you just kind of create some branches. It's like this. And you're just going to keep repeating that, working your way down. I need to turn it up just a little bit. It's in a little bit. So let's see what it does at 44. Let it give it a second to heat up. All right, that's going to work a little bit better. So this is the bottom of the tree. And now I'm just going to work my way up to the point. And I'm just going to fill this in. I'll come back with a shader to put a trunk on it. But for now, I'll just do that. And I just want to create a bigger, taller tree, kind of bring it over the edge there a little bit. And that doesn't look right. So I'm just going to make that part of the tree. I'll come back with a shader and shade the bottom of it to create a trunk, a different tip. And you can also create like wavy mountains. So I'll just kind of create a nice and slow and easy. We're just going to bring that down. Oh, I'm out of the picture there. Like that. And then what you want to do is just do another one a little bit taller. I need to go a little bit higher because it's skipping on the wood. It's not really burning into the wood here. So I got it upside down, but this is just a sample piece. But so just take your time. And then we're just going to make this one a little shorter. And then we're just going to, let's see here. That one came that way. So we're going to make one that comes off this way. And things like that. And then you could add little trees on the top of the mountains, you know, here and there. So I'm going to fill in another tree here. Kind of, this is a tree that's close to. Not so close. We'll make another tree down here. And you can just fill it in with all kinds of different trees. Just take our time. These are just little pine trees up in the mountains. On the top, well, if I had this flipped over, that should have been the top. That's all right. You can put the sun rising. I'll use that. I'll use the shader for that. You can make like little clouds floating by, just like this. Puffy clouds going by, and we'll shade those in a little bit with the shader. The shader will fill in a lot of this. Just like that. Yeah, little clouds. Let's put a log cabin back over this way. So we create a log cabin here. Let's build the walls first. It's just a rustic cabin. Want to draw the roof. And these are all just roughing burns. These aren't the final, what they'll look in the final drawing or the final way there. Little door. And I like wood burning because it's rustic looking. Draw just a little bit of a roof line here. All this will be filled in a minute. I'll get a finer detail gouges and stuff here, like a spoon shader and things. It'll draw finer lines than this wire does. All right, so we'll turn that off. We'll switch tips, set this one aside, let it cool off. And we're gonna grab the spoon shader here. This is the spoon shader. You can do two things. You can shade with it, as you can see in the shape there. Hopefully you can see I'm trying to get it in the camera. It's got a spoon shape to it, and it's flat like this, but it's so narrow you could draw lines with it, very fine lines, or you can shade with it. And that's how. So let's heat this one up. These take a little longer to heat up. There's a little bit of residue left on it here, so see if I can clean that off with the cleaner. Little sandpaper usually helps too. So I'm just gonna up here again, just check to see if okay, we need to turn this one up a bit more. Usually the shaders take a bit more power. So I'm gonna turn it up to 75. Oh, too high. You don't want a shader to instantly burn the wood like that. Usually I have a piece of wood, it's like a scrap piece of wood of the same wood, so I could practice, how the burner is going to act. Oop. Accidentally turned it off. There we go. That's a good shading. And fine lines. Okay. So we can come in here and we're just going to kind of draw in a trunk at the base of the trees. It's a solid line there. We can come back and work on the trees a little bit more. We can come back in and just kind of add a little bit more there. Bit more lines down into that trunk. Darken that tree up a little bit. There we go. You can add some shading along the hilltops. Okay, this is still a little too hot now, so I'm going to turn it down to 50. Lighten it up a little bit. Okay, that's still a little too hot. When you're shading, you want to have a light shade, and then if you need it darker, you want to work your way up to that darkness. There we go. So you just go back over it if you want a darker shade. I'll probably do here. I'll probably turn it up just a little bit, give it a little nudge. So it seemed a little, so I can get the shade to match the top of the hills a little bit better. You kind of just go quickly over it. And kind of transition that shade, make it a little bit darker towards the top of the hills. And we're going to find that little shack we built here. I'll probably add a little more detail around the shack here, but what I want to do is create just some fine lines, the walls. Need to turn it up a little bit for that. There we go. All right, so we'll just kind of fill that in, some darker lines, and then we'll turn it back down so we can shade the house a little bit. And also show them where the doorway is. We're just going to slide the spoon quickly across the surface. Should have made the shack a little bit bigger. You can add a little smokestack to it. Or a chimney. Then you could kind of make some smoke coming out of there. Not the best one I've done. Usually I draw these out a little bit when I'm making little shacks and things like that. So we just need to kind of blend all this together. And make it lighter as we go down, so I'm going to turn it down. Turn it up a little to 42. Each piece of wood is a little different, and you just got to get that temperature just right. See, I just don't have it hot enough for that. And with a shade, go a little bit hotter. There we go. That's a little better. So we got not the best looking trees either. This piece of wood's not the best wood burning wood, I don't think. So that's why I'm having trouble with it. But I can show you something that I made in the past. Show that wood burning is a fun thing to do. So hopefully, if I put my face on, let me go grab the piece here. This piece is, well, I made this a long time ago. Back in the year 2000. Wow, 24 years ago, almost 24 years ago, 1 month shy of that. Let me get my face thing on here. There we go. See if the lights won't reflect off of it too well. This is what you can do with wood burning. Along there, let's go back this way. Got the buildings and trees, little church. Like I said, a lot of this is faded away, unfortunately, because I've had it hanging in my shop for 24 years. But that's what you can do with wood burning. Just try to do it in miniature on the ornaments. You can see there it's turning blue. This is the reactive paint. This is what you're looking for. It's still going to keep changing. It'll change unless you put a finish on it, which I usually don't do on these. Very rarely. The reactive acid will keep changing the color. And eventually, over probably a few months or so, depending on where you got all this, the whole thing will turn like a blue patina over the copper, almost like the Statue of Liberty color, because that was made out of copper, and all that sea air right there, it turns it blue almost instantly. But same concept, only faster. And let's see how that. I need a healthy dose of a little more white. So we've got a little more white on it, more texturing. And once this is dry, I would probably spray it with a clear acrylic, like Krylon. It's almost like well, acrylic is plastic, but I would use the clear high gloss, and it really makes for a shiny, pretty textured ornament. All right, so I think we're done for the day. Let me switch cameras back. There we go. I appreciate everybody who signed in and signed up. And all right, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I want to do, I want to warm up. So I'm going to make a couple of spin tops just to warm up. Those are always fun, a fun thing to do when you're warming up for the day. So I've got it's pretty close. Let me pan that out just a little bit for a minute here. All right, this is a 2-inch diameter dowel you buy at the hardware store, Lowe's or Home Depot. I find Lowe's has them for a cheaper price. You can get them on Amazon for even cheaper. This is what I like to make my spin tops out of. You can get a whole like 4-foot, 48-inch length for like $10. And I can get a lot of tops out of that. So let me grab me my small roughing gouge first. I want to make sure everything is all trued up. Sometimes there's a little bit of a wobble in them. You get them as close as you can, but even your eye can't pick up the subtleties of a small. Yeah, you can see it wobbling just a little bit there now. So I just turn it up a little bit. I'm not using a tailstock. It's not really needed for this. It's not really any heavy cuts I'll be doing. So I start my cut inside the wood. I never come in from the edge because you can catch that corner and throw your piece out of your chuck. So you always want to start on the inside and work your way towards the end. And you just do the reverse thing towards the headstock, making sure your tool does not run into the jaws of your chuck there. Doesn't need to be super smooth. It can have a few tool marks because it's gonna turn all those away here. All right, so I'm just gonna, to help get rid of some of that vibration, I'm just gonna true up the end here using a parting tool. And I'm gonna switch cameras. We got that view there, so I'm gonna grab me a spindle gouge. This is just a 3/8 spindle gouge, nothing fancy. I'm gonna turn my tool rest around to get the right angle. Oh, first I need to make the handle. I make these kind of opposite of a lot of people. A lot of people, they turn the bottom point on the end and then they make the handle inside. I do the opposite. I make the handle out here and then turn the inside or the point. It allows me to put some texturing tools on the upper part and decorate it and things. So I'm just thinning this down a little bit. Now I'm going to grab me my parting tool and take that a little bit further down. This will be the handle. Leave it a little bit thick at first, and then you can adjust it with the spindle gouge. And you can just sit there. It needs to be a little bit longer so your fingers can give it a twist. Clean that up. And then I'll bring my, now I need to bring that in. It's a little too high now because we did cut a bit of a wood away. So we're just going to kind of clean this up, give it a little bit of a concave. And I'm going to switch over to overhead. You guys can see a little bit better. I'm going to zoom in on that. Oops. Adjust my camera a little bit better. Looks like somebody else just came in the room. That's good. There we go. Oh, come on, camera. Adjust. Pop that loose. All right, so we can probably see that. Yep. So I'm just creating a concave on the handle here. It allows for a better grip, plus it looks nicer. We're going to create a small point on the end. Sometimes people like to reverse turn these. I've never got the handle of that and the hang of that myself. And then we're going to come in. We're not going to leave that flat. We're going to create like a, just like a crown almost, like a little dome shape on the top. And we're going to clean that up. And we're just going to put a little bit of detail right at the bottom of the handle there. I grab me my smaller detail gouge, just to be able to get in there. So create a little bit of a detail right here. There we go. A little bit of a cove right at the base of the hand. And then I'm going to do a pull cut here, a scraping cut, just to clean up any tool marks using the wing, this wing of the tool. I'm almost closing the flute all the way, but not quite, because I don't want the upper wing to touch the wood. All right. There we go. I'm just going to touch it with a little bit of sandpaper. Turn the lathe down for this. And these are also nice for Christmas. So we got like grandkids or little kids or something. nephews, nieces, even adults love these things. When I do my craft shows, I sell more of these to the adults than I do for kids. So it's kind of crazy. All right, so now we want to do some decorating on the top. I'm going to turn my tool rest around here and bring it up some. So I'm going to grab me where's my chatter tool? Use my chatter tool today. This leaves a nice design. It don't really only works on end grain, which this will be. And when you need to raise the tool rest a bit higher than above center, because you want to attack it on a downward slope. It gives a better detail that way. You want to make sure your tool rest is also far enough back where you're not hitting this part on your tool rest. So I can bring it up just a little bit closer. And you might hear this screech on the mic. I'm not sure, but if it's screeching, that means it's working. So you want to do it at a high speed. Gives a much nicer design. So here we go. Now let's see what kind of design that created. That's very pretty. Let me switch cameras so you guys can hopefully see that. There's a little bit, but I'm going to color that, which is going to make it pop out quite a bit more. So I am just going to use Sharpies. Now, if I was making this to sell, I would spray it with like a thin, some sort of sealer. This is Hampshire Sheen, but you could use any sealer. You could use the canned sealer, anything. But why you want to do that is over time, if you use the Sharpies like this and you don't have that, the colors are going to fade right into the wood. And that's kind of disappointing to the people that buy them. So I'm going to start with the light blue. Then I'll probably switch over to like a different kind of color. I'm going to turn down the lid just a little bit. It's a little bit too much. I'm going to use my tool rest as a hand post here. I'm just going to start there and just stop. And I'm just going to put pink on it. That'll be pretty. And then there's solid wood right there. And then I'm going to come in and solid that up. There we go. And now we'll really see the design show up. There it is. Really see that on the camera now. That's really pretty. That came out nice. So now I'm just going to come back into here and I'm just going to carve away this wood using a large detail gouge just so I can get down in there because it does have a long, you can see it has a really long bevel on it so it can reach further in without it hitting. If I was to use this, I would run out of room. I wouldn't be able to really get down in there because just how blunt this bevel is on this spindle gouge. So I'm just going to pick a point. I need to drop my tool rest a little bit more. So I want to start in the back and I'm just going to work my way up towards the top of the top. I can turn up the lathe a little bit. And I'm just going to slowly take this down. And I'm going to come back in here and I'm just going to open this up a little bit. All this wood I'm taking away could I'm going to take some more of this down. So this does get in the way of the cutting. I'm not going to take it all the way down though. All this wood can become a handle for another top. Now we can just start whittling that down this way. And now we're just going to work our way, very small little cuts. Before I do that, I'm just going to touch it with that sandpaper again on the back side. Just ease, turn the lathe down a little bit. Plus, you want to turn down the lathe before you do the final cut, so your top doesn't go flying across the room. Just kind of sand over the edges a little bit. All right. Oh, there goes a tool on the floor. So we're just going to do gentle cuts. Here we go. It's going to pop off here. Oop, there we go. So I'm just going to hit this with a little bit of sandpaper on the end. And to harden the point, I like to, let's do the overhead. I like to take the point and just rub it on the bedways. This hardens that because you don't, and it takes away any like feathering or anything that might be on the bottom. I don't know. Let's see if I got something handy to spin this thing on. In fact, I do. Pull out one of my old platters here. I'm gonna zoom this out. And we can just make sure it works. Yeah. There we go. Very fun projects to make, especially around Christmas time.